Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier, UFC 300. That's a rumor that I read today, guys, and that hasn't gone away. Like, Conor versus Poirier is not a new concept. I wouldn't tell you you're a fool or you don't follow the sport if you brought that up. But I will let you know that you're greatly misunderstanding the times that we're in right now, and Conor's next fight is going to be with Chandler. Unless Chandler gets hurt or sick, of which I don't think he'd tell anybody, I think he would show up anyway. That's a subsection, right? I'm talking about just a straightforward normality with the information that we have right now. To suggest Conor against anybody else, you're wasting your breath. And as we start to get to 300, so we've got Poirier versus Conor, and that was kind of circulating a little bit today. You want to know another one? It was George St-Pierre versus Nick Diaz, part 2. And this, of course, is 3 months removed from speculation that Ronda Rousey was going to return. And I'm not sure what about when you hear UFC 300. I'm not sure what about that. Then you then give a pass to the policies put in place to get to number 300. Like, I'm just not sure where 300, because it's 300, becomes a spoof event, or it becomes a spectacle event, or it becomes for one-offs, or because a night that we would never do any other time, but this one is special. And I wouldn't push back on your notion if this was the first one, but it's 300, which means it's the third one, which means we have 2 others that we can reference. If UFC 100 and or UFC 200 had spoof matches, if that's where the fun or the silliness or the nostalgia, any word that you would like to apply, but if that is where exceptions to the norm and a breaking of policies take place, then where within 100 and where within 200 did you see that? Why would you think that this is a place you got to 300 a certain way? Okay, did you do that by bringing guys in on a one-off? I mean, the St-Pierre versus Diaz, does that draw? Sure. Why didn't it happen at 199? Or 201? Or 299 or 301? Why wouldn't it happen there? If that is what got us to 300, why would we not continue to follow the principles and policies that got us here? I mean, I'm just asking because I'm hearing from some pretty good people, from some pretty meaningful people, a level of silliness within these fights. And as we do start to look to 300 and people are starting to maneuver themselves for that event, Conor coming off of that event struck people as a big surprise. Wow, big event, their biggest stars available, and they're not putting him there. Well, as soon as you demote a guy, it is very difficult to promote the guy. Conor is in a wildly unique position where the outcome of his last match does not impact the magnitude of his next. And he's been in that position for years. The result of his previous night does not affect his placement on the card. He was a main event then, it will be a main event on the next one. Win or lose. Until he's not. And that is your average fighter's trajectory. Well, they will come through the dog parks and the YMCAs and they'll work themselves into an organization. And the good ones will keep winning, keep building their brand, and they'll work their way up the card. And then they will very slowly start to work their way back down the card. Your main eventers become your co-main eventers. They become your main card guys. They go to the undercard. Once they reach the undercard, it's just a matter of time. Do they step aside themselves? Or do they wait until it's done for them? But that is the basic trajectory. There is not athletes who come in and follow that, they make it to the top, and they come back down, and then they go back to the top. So I'm only sharing that for you because UFC 300, without knowing anything about it, will have a title fight. Conor McGregor will be a main event. If Conor McGregor were to fight at UFC 300, just on its face, he could not be a main event. So if you have Conor on a card, you got him third from the top, just by example, he's not returning to the top. It's in a wildly unique position as it is, where results don't impact the future. But I'm just sharing with you, like if you're looking at 300 and you're trying to make your guesses, Do you believe that Conor McGregor, the sport's biggest star, the most anticipated return, all this stuff, do you believe he's going to come back and be anything less than a main event? If you do, you've lost credibility. We can stop talking. Do you think that on number 300, the headliner's not going to be a title fight? Because if you do, you've lost credibility and we can just stop talking. But I just wanted to share some of these principles with you that you might be missing. And all of a sudden, your predictions, well, you won't know which way you want to go. You do have things that you can eliminate. Dana White will always put on a significant fight. Always and every time. Won't matter if it's a pay-per-view, won't matter if it's a sideshow, won't matter if back in the old days it was on Wednesday. Won't make a bit of difference. The fight must have a significance, whatever that is. He will never and has never put on a fight that didn't have a potential for a story to be told. So I bring to you, when you talk about GSP versus Diaz Part 2, when you talk about that, if both aren't going to return, if both aren't going to take on a meaningful schedule, if both are not trying to get their names back out there and break back into the rankings, in a pursuit ultimately to get to a title shot and a title, if that is not on the board, and that is no longer possible, they are not getting booked and they're not getting airtime now or ever. And I use the example of GSP and Nick Diaz just to remind you, when we get to 300, we aren't going to start doing things that haven't been done for the previous 299. It's going to be a celebration and a tribute and a tip of the hat. The policies are not then going to begin to be broken. Ronda's not going to come in for one night. And it's a concept that's very important that you do understand. Because when you watch other fight organizations that are trying to be competitive, and they can't get there, it's not just the star power, it's not just those little letters of UFC, it's not just the production, it's not a lot of the things with the marketing machine or all of the other excuses that are given because the person doesn't understand what's happening in front of them. You will have promoters who need to put on the biggest fight they can on a specific night. That's called checkers. That's a lot of fun. I don't put it down. But there's a difference when you're dealing with somebody that plays chess constantly. And to act as though you've studied the sport or you observed it or if you were matchmaker for the day, here's what I would do. And not to understand that over the 30-year history, each fight has a significance. It has a potential to lead to something else. No matter how unlikely, no matter what the risk, it has a potential. It has the opportunity. Both guys are under contract. They're back. They're meaningful. We're moving forward. It has the potential. There is no fight in the 30-year history that you can show me that didn't have that ingredient, that was done on a one-off, that was done just for fun, that was done for the sake of nostalgia, that was done to sell money for tonight and not look to the future, that was meant to disrupt. I'm going to use my TV time, which is ever so coveted, to build and shine somebody. Nope, I'm going to use my TV time. Forget all the guys that I've got who I could build and shine. I'm going to do it two guys that are never going to come back. If I build them and let them have this special and fun moment in the crowd and they got a tear in their eyes and they're buying a t-shirt on the way up, but the guy's never coming back, why did I use my airtime and give it to him in the first place? And if you don't understand this concept, there's a lot of places in MMA you can work because they don't understand it either. If you do understand the concept that everything is happening for a reason, we're not playing checkers, we're not doing it for one night only. It's the beginning or the middle of a larger story being told. It at least possesses that potential, or it's not getting airtime. Very simple concept. Not a lot of people recognize it. If you do, I just gave you a leg up.